Hello, Florida disciples. I'm Slim, your storyteller. Here we are at the Regional Assembly in the year 2020. Isn't this a wonderful celebration of the growth of our church in the recent years? We are meeting at Covenant Christian Church here in Enterprise, Florida. It is especially meaningful since it is at one of our newest congregations. The Covenant folks have really rolled out the red carpet. They do hospitality right. It's amazing how far we have come in the last few years. We've been busy because we are clear about our mission and we have some good tools that help us work together. I think we are able to accomplish so much in such a short time because we know who we are as disciples of Christ.
Excuse me, Mr. Slim. I'm new to this disciple thing. Could you tell me a little more about who these Florida disciples are?
It would be my pleasure, Dash. The Florida disciples have a very rich history. Back in 1874, several Christian churches began gathering as a group to celebrate our common faith as participants in the Stone Campbell movement. 5 years later, in 1881, we organized ourselves as the Florida Christian Cooperation, and now we were official. In 1892, we hired our first state evangelist at a COE named D.M. Brecker. By 1910, we changed our name to the Florida Christian Missionary Society. We were serious about reaching out in faith and service. In 1949 to 1950, we established specific groups devoted to study, fellowship, and ministry. The Florida Christian Men's Fellowship, the Christian Youth Fellowship, and the Christian Women's Fellowship. If you wanted to get something done, just ask one of these groups to do it. Come to think of it, that's still true today. In the 50s, 12 acres of land in Silver Springs was donated, and that began our ministry at the Christian Church Conference Center. In 1950, beloved disciple minister C. Manley Morton, after whom a campground is named in Puerto Rico, started the Florida Timothy Association for young people entering the ministry. He established a relationship between Florida disciples and Puerto Rico disciples that we still celebrate today. That's who we were, about 80 congregations working together for the next 35 years. Congregations came and congregations went. In 1967, we changed our name again to the Florida Christian Church's Disciples of Christ, and in 1974, we became the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in Florida, Incorporated. Dash, we were a church focused on Christ. We then established several African American congregations. Some Hispanic, Latino congregations thrived. Several Haitian congregations came into the disciples. The ministry of the Conference Center continued. The regional office developed an identity of its own, often apart from our churches. Our general church was restructuring itself. Expectations about ministry were changing. Churches wanted seminary-trained pastors. Some of our programs stayed strong, while others weakened or disappeared altogether. Many of our congregations, generally speaking, were shrinking in membership. In 2009, there was an atmospheric cataclysm in our universe. We realized that we were a disconnected galaxy. Even our theologies didn't match. We had Pentecostal, traditional, progressive, and contemporary. We were broken and broke. By 2014, things were a real confusing mess in our region. All our planets were having difficulty ministering. Have you ever noticed how perfect vision and hindsight our 2020. In 2014, the region gathered a team to seek a new vision. We wanted to discover what being a regional church should look like. How can we heal the broken relationships caused by the atmospheric cataclysm of 2009? How can we do ministry in new ways, especially with diminishing resources and many leaders burned out? Much of what had worked for decades no longer seemed appropriate or needed by many congregations. So we began the process of transformation. Here is what we have become today in 2020. A system of connections that is appropriate for a diverse group of people. We recognize that we are all connected through Christ. The regional church is now reorganized as a community. We are now less isolated, less insular, more comfortable reaching out with a phone call. There's been a growing emphasis for our congregations to develop spiritual gifts and talents, putting them to use. We are putting people in positions and roles that fit their giftedness in congregations and across the regional church. It is a new wind of the Spirit, helping churches focus on being alive rather than staying alive. We are celebrating a new way. Actually, it's a very old way, God's way of being church together. Our regional assemblies bring us outstanding and uplifting worship and preaching.
Amen!
We view regional ministry differently. Used to be, if we had a problem, we called up the regional office. They were the fix-it people of our universe. We expected the regional minister to show up with the right tools to solve our problems. Today, our regional ministry team works along beside us. They are not viewed as a source for every answer to every question. Instead, we see them as a resource. They help facilitate intergalactic connections using the Florida Regional Church Space Station. They help us connect with other congregations or individuals that have the answers or assistance that we need. This connecting is made easier with our region-wide electronic communications network. Everyone is using inexpensive, off-the-shelf hardware and internet-based applications. And we have regional techno geeks available throughout the disciple sphere. Our story of how we are now in 2020 includes many ways that we have changed how we are doing ministry. We are excited about our connections and the mission work that we are doing. Our regional ministers have become the tenders of the network, nurturing connections, helping us be life-giving, bridge-building, barrier-breaking, and helping us have spirit-filled relationships. Some of our constituencies, such as Disciple Women, La Convención, Disciple Men, Senior Adult Ministries, they're all still going strong. New groups have formed around various interests. One group is designing pyramids, banners and stoles for all kinds of special seasons. A network of church musicians and an online gig board have been created. The retreat at Silver Springs, formerly known as the Christian Church Conference Center, is being marketed in new ways. In addition to our regular camps and conferences, the retreat is now available to a variety of groups and organizations. We recognized several years ago that the retreat needed to be self-sustaining. We developed a permanent fund with the Christian Church Foundation, Along with being able to expand the grounds and facilities, the retreat is now doing better than breaking even. For the last 2 years, it is completely self-sustaining. Our congregations have learned that church buildings can be both blessing and curse. Through encouragement and links to denominational tools, congregations are able to utilize more funds for missional ministry. A high percentage of congregations have worked together to support a new clinic for farm workers in the heart of citrus-growing country. We have completed the building with the funds from the Regional Capital Campaign. Special partnerships are being formed with churches of other denominations to do local mission work like building homes for Habitat for Humanity and stocking local food banks. Let us celebrate what our regional church has become. A galaxy that is constantly being shaped by Christ. Our planets are healthy, and we have a greater sense of traveling together on our mission. We have brave travelers who crisscross the region, helping to close the gaps that once kept us apart. We are learning and living a transformed way of doing and being church together. This is our regional story. We claim the story we have received from Christ. We are living with a blessed assurance that Jesus is ours. We are experiencing a foretaste of glory divine. We celebrate being heirs of salvation, purchased of God. We feel born of His Spirit.